Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the only podcast produced by three two-time winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. You're tuned into the Check Engine podcast. We're hosted on Anchor.fm, and we are streamed worldwide on all the platforms you use to listen to your favorites. My name is Nick. Joining me, as they do every single week, are my two friends and co-hosts. Andrew and Tristan are both here. What's up, guys?
Hey, man, how's it going? I got to start right off with a good bit of news. My wife and I are expecting our first child later in the year, so I'm feeling really good.
Woo! Congratulations!
Woo! It's good stuff, man. It's really
honestly
good stuff.
It's honestly hard for me to act surprised because we knew before the official announcement. But
yeah.
Hey, congrats, man! Doesn't change the fact that it's awesome, and we are happy for you.
Well, thanks.
I have. Well, how do you follow that?
I
went to the doctor and got some new medication. That was fun.
Nice. That's good. That's quality.
The puppy is still a puppy, but It was warm today, which was nice.
It was good.
40 degrees.
Weather, and my health. Let's stick to the chit chat, the small talk,
the most important stuff.
Yes.
Oh, come on, man! I'm excited. I had to finally get the announcement on the podcast.
Oh no, yeah. That's nothing on you. I just don't have. Nick's like, and Tristan. I'm like, yeah, I'm here.
Tristan and I, neither of us are going to be a father later this year, so there's that. I guess, yeah, but yeah, I know.
there's still technically time.
It's a long year.
That's also true. Okay, we won't be fathers by September.
We won't. Yeah. You'll beat us no matter what at this point.
True.
Andrew be the first one. So yeah, congrats, dude.
Thanks.
Nothing real big on my end either. I'm actually ahead of the game and prepping the go-kart for this year, which makes me excited.
Nice.
May cannot get here soon enough. First round of the Tag Masters Championship coming up in a couple of months. And
wait, actually, on that subject, now last time we talked to go-kart, you were telling us about the new chassis and difficulties you were having mounting the engine and stuff, right?
Which is why I am excited, because we got that all figured out.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, the mount that was on my engine was designed, it came from the factory to fit, this is getting kind of deep in the weeds, but came to fit a 30 millimeter frame. So the chassis is 30 millimeters in diameter, and that's what it's meant to fit around. The new one is 32 and a fraction. So it's a little bit thicker frame, but we were able to find a new engine mount that will work and also fit my actual engine. So that's cool. It's really coming down at this point. Once I get the engine back from getting retuned in like 2 or 3 weeks, it is mount the engine on, put on the decals, and it's ready to go test. Like, we're that far ahead of schedule. So
nice.
Yeah, we were able to get a lot of stuff taken care of over the past weekend, which I'm fired up about. I'd look outside and it's, well, up until today, it was like 0 degrees. So
right.
like, oh, it's still so far away.
And then today it was like time for a picnic, because
yeah, exactly.
It was over 40 degrees, so time for swimming pool, picnics, all those good things.
And what I can do in the meantime, I guess, is try to figure out, get the old chassis sold so it can get out of the garage. I have it wedged in here between the wall and Claire's car. Actually, Tristan, on your round picnic table that we used to record from. I was meaning to get that back to you, and then I realized I needed a second cart stand.
Listen, I have a need, so no, it's we don't. So go for it.
So hopefully that'll be coming back to you as soon as I move this other chassis. So if you're in the market, anybody, for a 2011 FA kart rolling chassis with no seat or motor, but you want to build something off of it, let me know. Inbox at checkenginepodcast.com.
He knows what he's got. No lowball offers.
Exactly. Sorry. Anyway, what are we talking about tonight, Andrew? We're not here to talk about my go-kart or anything else.
Well, so this week we're going to talk about a subject that we've bandied it around for not quite some time, but for a while. The idea of talking about video games or car video games in specifics. And I was trying to get a couple different guests on to do this with us, and no one really seemed that interested, probably because we're so small, in all honesty. Like I have a couple old high school buddies who write for video games. And one thing that interests me about racing video games, Tristan, and I have talked about this several times with our grid obsession, is the difference between a racing game that gives you a plot, that gives you a main character, for lack of a better term, and something like Gran Turismo, which is essentially achievement based in the purest sense, right? There's barely a person driving the car, right? I mean, can you now customize the driver in Gran Turismo, or is it still just like the guy in the white suit with the white helmet, as it always was?
You can customize the suit and the helmet.
Oh, nice.
From your in-car view, is it just white gloves on a wheel like it has been forever?
Anyway, so I think that's the first part of what we're going to talk about tonight. The plot of car video games, whether it matters, and then the next thing I think we might try to give a little exploration on what we actually would prefer for our own perfect car video games, which again I think Tristan and I have mentioned before on here, the things we like and things we don't, and what the goal would be for a series like Grid. But yeah, so we're just going to talk about car video game storylines, what's important, what's not, and what we want.
Sounds like a plan. That's going to be fun discussion. Before we dive into that, though, does anybody have any quick news tidbits, quick pace lap, our first pace lap session of the year, of the new season?
I don't have anything that's that important, really. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 was announced, and they just made the concept car that they put out, I want to say 2 years ago at this point. That little like hatchback thing, and it looks amazing. But so did the concept car, so
not a surprise.
Nope.
Can we talk for a minute about Jim Farley, the car fan, and not Jim Farley, the Ford CEO?
Yeah, let's do it.
You don't sound too enthused.
I mean,
where this comes from is I posted it on Facebook, and Ford UK announced a new small SUV for that market over there across the Atlantic called the Puma ST. And Ford UK tweeted it out. There's this trailer video showing the this lime green or very bright green little fun SUV, and Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, retweeted it with the caption, "Wish this came to North America and other markets." It's like,
if only
I appreciate your I appreciate your enthusiasm, Mr. Farley, but I feel like you could have some influence in that.
I mean, a lot of times people will say, that's not my job. That is his job.
That's legitimately his job.
Extremely his job.
All he has to do is say, "Hey, bring this to North America and other markets," and it will come to North America and other markets.
I mean, obviously, it's slightly more complicated than that, right?
Yes.
With the various testings and additional dev time you have because American bumper laws are stupid. But what are you going to say, Tristan?
Oh, nothing as important as that. You are definitely right. It's not quite as easy as say it and make it so. But I'm just having to restrain myself so much to not make a red versus blue joke.
Would anyone understand it?
No, that's why I'm succeeding so far.
Oh, okay. I mean, aside from that, this feels to me weirdly like either an attempt at I guess viral marketing, quote unquote, if we still use that term, or B, just a guy new in the job is trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? Because I think it's clear at this point that and again, not to rehash this for the millionth time, but everything that Hackett did was dumb and bad. And they're going to have to fix it. And then Ford is looking at a path of working really, really hard to undo all the bad things that were just done. And part of that is eventually going to be bringing back small cars or cars that people may actually want to drive, unlike the EcoSport. So clearly he knows that. Clearly the board knows that. And this is just like the best attempt or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm just, you know, I don't want to say cute, but I'm kind of, it's intriguing that, you know, you have a CEO coming out there and showing a little bit of fandom, in my opinion. You know, that he's excited about it. It's just, the irony just was not lost on me when I looked at that. I'm like, wait a minute. So
right.
I just wanted to bring it up. I thought it was cool. Has anybody here actually looked into more details on the Puma ST? I was stuck on the tweet and the irony of it. I didn't actually look up the car that much.
No.
Yeah.
No, I did not. Did not spend time on that.
Yeah, me neither.
What am I going to see? Yeah, spend my time reading about a small SUV? No.
That we're not going to get? Yeah, no, never mind.
Hey, maybe old Jimmy Boy can make it happen for you.
Hey, Jim.
New Jim.
Yeah, new Jimmy Boy.
So much better than the old Jim.
Jim 2.0.
Jim is dead. Long live the Jim.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we got to talk about before we dive into our main theme here?
Not really. I'm just looking. I really don't have anything. Nothing extraordinary caught my eye, really.
Tristan, you got anything?
Not really. I know just a funny thing that I guess like I know we don't devote a lot of time to Tesla on here, mainly because of dislike, but I feel like for most of us who don't like Tesla, both on the podcast and outside the podcast, part of that's driven by actually knowing and understanding the vehicles, and so you're not called out as a rube if someone's like, well, why don't you like them, and you can't give any answers.
Right.
But I didn't know that the wheels were just plastic wheel covers.
Yes.
Over regular ass rims. Like I saw some guy taking them off at Quick Trip, and I was like, what?
That's on the base 3 for sure. But obviously they do make actual rims and wheels, and they make some of the nicest in the business currently. But
right. But some of them are just plastic wheel covers, which
knockoffs.
Made me chuckle surprisedly when I was getting gas, which I don't know why he was there either. maybe he was there for the food inside. I don't know.
I was gonna say, was it a Quick Trip?
Yes, he's there for the donuts. Maybe.
Any listeners from Wisconsin will understand. Yep, that's why he was there. It was for the donuts.
Probably.
Let's see. Maybe it's worth mentioning that we hit a new milestone on social. We hit the 300 like mark on Facebook.
Hit it and blew right past it. So
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you to all of our new friends out there who may or may not be listening. We appreciate you jumping on board.
Yeah, lots of interaction too. Like, I don't know, I used to just not go on Facebook because I hate Facebook, but now I'm starting to not go on Facebook because I don't know what to do with the attention that the podcast page is getting, and it just stresses me out.
It's good. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of messages. This shows just how old I am. Like, so there's this one guy who reached out. Thank you, by the way, for reaching out and being interested. And he said, "Where are you guys located?" My initial thought was, like on a map, right? So I'm like, we're in, southern Wisconsin, just outside Milwaukee area. And his response was, "Cool. Guess I'll just get your podcast by mail then." And I said, "Oh,
okay, all right, no. In fairness,
I said, oh, you mean that? Okay, yeah, we're on all the major platforms. Also, follow the link, dude."
Yeah, if he found our Facebook page, how the hell did he? Whatever. Hope you're listening now, buddy.
As I say, let's lose one of those people we gathered over the past few days.
Listen, sometimes if you go fishing, you're gonna catch a boot.
Episode title.
Yep.
I stole that from Community.
Catching a boot.
But yeah. By the way, don't be afraid to interact because you won't talk to me. You'll talk to someone who's a lot more socially apt in Nick. So
probably Nick, sometimes me.
yes,
but mostly Nick.
Right.
Yeah. So feel free. I'm the nice one.
Exactly.
The one last thing I had, because I think it's a it would make for a good segue, Andrew, is to no one's surprise, by the way, it was announced that the launch for Gran Turismo 7 has been delayed.
Oh, whoa.
This is my surprise face.
So we actually can't see your face, but
dude,
is that, I think that's seven for 7. Every game has missed this launch date.
It's good you can't see my face because it's not actually my surprise face, so you wouldn't gain anything from it.
Yeah. So not a surprise to anybody. Andrew, I think you guys, both of you might be able to speak to this better than I can. It's not really that much of a surprise when any games are late on their launch dates. Like it seems to be kind of a common thing. So it's not really like a shock and awe type moment. But I think it just goes with the theme. Like Gran Turismo, I don't think has hit 1.
If it weren't for all the, innuendo and things that could come along with that, no video game advertisement should have any words after the word, words or numbers after the word coming. It'd be like Gran Turismo 7 coming.
I mean,
Done.
I think
it's never right.
Couldn't they just say soon?
Years?
No, because then it might be like several years, and that's not soon.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Then maybe wait a little bit longer to announce it.
No.
No matter how long you wait, you'll be wrong.
Well, also, if you do that, you cannot. Not to get into the whole video game discussion, but pre-orders is why.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
hype train, choo choo.
Ugh. Well, you know what? All right, let's just take advantage of this momentum and
dive right
on into the main thing because obviously I think Gran Turismo represents racing video game A, right? As the case may be, it is the. I mean, I think it's like the grandpa, right, of real console racing games. It's the one that everyone wanted to be like for the longest time, and it is a game infamously, and like we just mentioned before, that doesn't really have a story. There's no named main character. There's no
character. There's no character interaction. It's and they say that, right? Like the developers say this, that the game is about the cars. Like it's not about anything else. It's about driving these cars.
Right.
And to that point, they make it, as you said earlier, achievement based. There's not like a story or a career mode or anything like that. Also, no damage because they don't want to take away from, actually driving the car when you wreck. They don't want, like, if you go out on a 5-lap race and wreck in the first corner, now you don't get that experience of what that car actually feels like to drive. So that's like the reason they will never, or to this point, have not put any damage in a Gran Turismo game either.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a good point. Although in, I think 3 and later, obviously there are races with tire wear, fuel, and...
Yes, they have tire and fuel consumption where it affects the handling of the cars. But no, like,
simulation stuff.
You can go head on into a wall at 200 and it won't be a scratch on the car.
Right. And I mean, in terms of, I guess, the common man, right? At the time, most of the rest of the racing games that were out in the world were arcade, fully arcade, Yep. And I remember the first time I played Gran Turismo, it felt like something completely different. And I don't think there's ever a point for me with Gran Turismo where I put a character or put myself as a self-insert into the game at all. It was always solely the almost arcade style, like get this achievement, move on to the next achievement, get that one and the next one and the next one, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was your guys' experience playing the Gran Turismo games?
Very similar. And I'm a rather competitive person, so the achievement based thing worked for me. Plus, there's outside of the some arcade style car games like the San Francisco Rushes and all that type of thing, like this was the first like real driving simulator. Like, and for a car and racing nut like me, like that was it. Like that was the grail.
Right.
So I still thoroughly and well, not I'm not going to say thoroughly anymore. I used to thoroughly enjoy them. I am interested in trying Gran Turismo, but yeah, I think this is the foundation on what like the modern sim driving games were built. I think, instead of Corsa, Forza, um, Project Cars, Grid is a little more arcadish.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you step up further to the online platforms like iRacing or R Factor, like if it wasn't for Gran Turismo proving that there was a market for it, I don't think you'd see many, if any, of those existing. iRacing maybe because it's strictly race car focused and there's no road cars in it. But I loved Tristan. I still remember when we were down in your basement with Gran Turismo. Was it 4 where Panama was the theme song?
Yes, it was.
And like we plugged that in for the first time, and I remember distinctly both of us yelling at the same time, "They have the R8!" and like high fiving and jumping around your basement before we even got a chance to play it because they showed it in the intro.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, that was the kind of the sum total of actually my Gran Turismo experience, because I was not a PlayStation owner until the years of 4, and although
Right.
I was entranced by the detail on the cars and the animation and everything, I'm one of those people that likes to do a self insert into games, but kind of has to, and we'll get there as we go, and I'll tell you where my Goldilocks zone is, but this is too hands off. This is there's not any acknowledgement really of the character, which to me translated to not being an acknowledgement of me. Like it's like if you pretend you're on the other end of a radio call or something, that's more immersive for me. So I found just the technical detail of the cars, technical detail of the driving got dry after a little while, and I never moved on from 4. I didn't pick up anything after that. Just found it was not for me. Now, yes, do I revel in its significance? Yes, I get it, but I personally never went on from there.
See, now that's interesting. You should bring up radio calls specifically, because to my memory, there aren't even any of those in Gran Turismo, even on the endurance races when you do have tire wear. And I remember very distinctly in 3, there was one endurance race, or so I remember it was a weirdly an endurance track oval, and it was like some absurd amount of laps that took, I want to say, like 4 or 5 hours real time, right? This was in the PS2 days. It was an absurdly long race, and you used to be able to beat it by taping down the trigger button and putting a rubber band on the right stick. If you got it at the right angles, you would literally drive the oval course in a way that you wouldn't crash.
What about traffic though?
Right, yeah, like gaming the game type thing. But even then, there was no crew chief, pit crew, anything like that, and nor were there those things in the other games of the day, or even moving into the next generation. Right, Project Gotham Racing didn't have much of that either. It had a sort of more direct way of involving the player by making it not only winning races that moved you ahead, but reaching specific goals inside those races. You had to do a thing correctly and to a certain standard before you can move on, which is kind of like combining the license tests and races of Gran Turismo, which was interesting. And I think a lot of people really liked that part of it because it made you feel more directly involved.
Yeah, that was one I had also only a passing familiarity with. I picked that disc up when it was on, Super Sale somewhere, I think, and I played it for a little while, but I can't say I have any actual lasting memory of what that game was like.
Yeah, no, same. I have played it as well, and I also have no distinct memories of it. I think that probably says a lot overall. But that is a game series that people still pine for, even with the advent of Forza, which again was more along the lines of when it originally came out, Gran Turismo, get your licenses, get your race on, get your race on, get your race on.
Mm-hmm.
One game I will offer as an alternative, and this is the first game that, I mean, definitely struck us all in sort of that middle generation. I forget exactly which ones, but that'd be GameCube, PS2, Xbox, which is Need for Speed Underground, which is a great game. We all love it. We all adore it. But do any of you remember the story? And it had one, but does anybody remember it?
It's funny, actually, not that one. The one that I actually do always remember is weirdly Need for Speed Carbon.
You played that?
Really?
Yeah.
What a nerd. Well, all right. So
I don't remember the exact story, Andrew. I do remember that they actually had celebrities at the time lending their likeness and their voice to the actual game, though.
That was 2.
That was 2. Okay.
That was 2. Well, since none of us remember, and there would be no reason for us to remember, I will read you the synopsis of the plot from Wikipedia. The synopsis of the plot of Need for Speed Underground.
Got it.
The player races in Olympic City in a modified Integra R. It's like the auto win car, right? This is our first video game plot trope, our first true one. Almost all racing games with plot, they drop you in the game immediately in one of the best cars in the game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the player races in this super modified Acura Integra R, great car, only to be woken by a Samantha from his sleep. Samantha tours the player around the import scene and illegal street racing. She helps the player buy his first car. The player also encounters several street racing crews, some of them being Samantha's acquaintances. Blah, blah, blah. She introduces him to the guy who upgrades the parts. The player races other racers and wins them over, eventually drawing the attention of Eddie, the leader of the East Siders gang, and Melissa, his beautiful girlfriend. Melissa. Eddie is the current best underground racer in Olympic City and berates the player for his racing skills, going as far as mocking him to, quote, take a taxi home so that he can get home faster.
Ooh.
Sick. But the player proves otherwise. Enraged, Eddie challenges the player to race Samantha, who gets infuriated by the player's acceptance. Oh, this is deep. Oh my God. There's layers. Oh, wow. Samantha loses after she wrecks her Honda Civic during the race, and her car is taken by TJ for himself. And he thereafter vandalizes it. Anyway, so that's then your low point of the story. That was the oh shit, what's it called? The Act 2 thing where the group breaks apart.
Oh shit, what's that called?
Yeah, I forget. Anyways, the player keeps winning races offered by Samantha's acquaintances in her absence, and then faces TJ in the vandalized Civic, returns the car, player returns to Samantha, they rekindle the friendship, and Samantha motivates the player to race Eddie and defeat him once and for all. The player races a 350Z and wins.
Spoiler,
Well, if the player wins, the mystery driver in the final race in the 350Z is revealed to be Melissa.
Dun dun dun.
What? I do not remember one bit of this.
The names are ringing bells. I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember the story.
No,
But I
no,
remember
me
for
neither.
whatever reason, I remember like Samantha's and Eddie's. I'm like, oh yeah, that brings me back.
Do you guys
Wow, good
remember?
for
Do
you.
you guys remember the storyline for Need for Speed Most Wanted?
Did that have a story?
Yeah, you were trying to work your way up the police's like blacklist of racers, and you had someone,
Oh,
yeah, and you had someone helping you out, and then when you get to number 2 and you challenge the lead guy to a race, it's all a setup. Your friend Mia, who's been helping you climb up the blacklist, and helping you knock out these racers one by one by winning pink slip races
I
against them.
remember that.
She turns on you. She's an undercover mole for the police department, but
Wow.
she catches feelings and tells you, "Fly, you fools," and
Oh my
tells you
God.
how to jump off a bridge and get out of town.
That's the
Oh,
plot of Fast and Furious 8.
right
That's
there.
the plot of.
Too 8, Too Furious.
That was
Is
me
it
after
eight
dinner.
or all 8?
Man, does it matter?
No, that's the point.
All right, so we've now stumbled upon our first game with a story. It was, I think we can say, not memorable. Maybe
No.
not memorable. It was not memorable. And although all three of us love the game, and you know what? I played this game as recently as last year, and I don't even remember there being a Samantha. Tristan, you can attest my absolute unsurpassed skill at listening to video game cutscenes.
Yeah, that's sarcasm, everybody. That's the which is why we don't play Destiny anymore.
I started 3 players in Destiny and skipped the opening cinematic every time.
And then just spends the whole time asking, "Wait, what's happening?" like if you didn't need to know or didn't care to know and didn't ask me, I wouldn't care. But you skip the cutscene and then are like, "Wait, what's happening? This game is stupid. I don't get the story."
2 of the 3 times it was an accident. The 3rd time was extremely purposeful and just to annoy you.
Well, we all know that.
Anyways, right. So, in the case, here's a hard question, I think. In the case of Need for Speed Underground, does the story of this game matter to any of us?
Nope.
I don't
know.
No. All right. So, let's try another one. A game that is near and dear to my heart, specifically for the mechanics, but also partially for the story. And that would be Forza Horizon 1. So, all the Horizon games have essentially the same plot, right? You are player. I think in 2 and 3
I am player.
Well, in 2 and 3 on, you can pick your name, right? You can pick the name they call you in the game.
Yeah, always Goose. Always Goose.
I don't remember that being an option in the first one.
I don't think so.
I actually think I started with 2, so I don't know.
I don't remember. Anyways, you are man, you are drive car, and you are part of a festival, a giant driving festival where you can do races, you can do drift events, you can do sort of off the road map exploration stuff. It almost has a lot of RPG elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
I love this game, but the only thing I can remember about it is that you race your way up through the ranks, quote unquote, and then at the end, trope alert, you race the big bad guy, but there is no twist in this game. You just win his car.
Twistless.
Yes. And a great feature of this game, there are, the main the most popular racer who is cast as evil for some reason. I don't know. Like, he's supposed to be a bad guy, right?
He's not you. That's why.
Right.
Right.
You race his minions sort of as you gain major levels in the game. I want to say it's like every 10 or something, or maybe at certain points when you unlock new areas of the festival, you race a minion of the, for whatever reason, bad other racer man, and then you win their cars. That is a lot of fun. That's a trope I think is great, but I don't understand, especially looking back on it and now explaining this story, why this other racer would be evil.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I, I
yeah.
honest- I honestly don't know.
Like there's no, I don't even,
There's no reason for him to be a quote
So
unquote
is
bad
there
guy.
is there a canon reason?
I don't I don't remember. I'm trying to see if it's here in the in the Wikipedia article, but it's not. Let me try while I try to find it. I yeah, I don't know. Maybe what if I look it up and he's not evil? I just remember him that way.
I do love
That would be.
I do love Forza. I love the Horizon games because of the that festival atmosphere that they create.
Oh yeah.
Like if something like that actually existed, how badass would that be? Just like a week of nonstop music. Like they have the music festivals, obviously. Well, you know, COVID notwithstanding, right? But to include the whole car element of it, you know, obviously I don't know if we can get like street racing into it, but like a festival like this with like a combination of music and lifestyle and like infused with car culture in it would just be so cool. So it's like an aspirational thing for me. Like, what
Oh,
if this
absolutely.
actually?
This
This is the dream, man.
this is actual heaven. This is the fire festival that I would lose all my money trying to go to. 100%.
Yes.
It's the purest form of fantasy indulgence. This would be, I mean, obviously impossible, and that's what makes it such a desirable thing.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
All right, so here's the 411 on the bad guy, and I partially misremembered it, but it's mostly Horizon's fault, right? So there is another racer guy, Horizon champion, but his name is Darius Flint. So if his
So
name is
that's why he has to be evil.
clearly, right? That's not just me.
That's not the name of a good guy.
It would never be. It's, and yeah, FLYNT. Come on. Come
Flynt.
on. So I guess maybe he's not evil, but to me, clearly he was. And in that way, I guess it was somewhat memorable, right? You race your way up to the big bad, or just big, and then defeat him and win his car, which is a lot of fun.
Was this the first? This was the, if I remember right, and guys keep me. Well, Need for Speed. Never mind. I was gonna say like the first real open world type game where it's just exploration you can go on.
Yeah, Need for Speed. To my mind, well, Need for Speed did have like optional stuff or things you could find, but Forza Horizon was the first game that I played that really rewarded you and made it like a main part of the game to go find those bulletin boards and you know whatever else it is off the main path, so to speak.
The barn finds.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, that was later. Barn. No.
No,
that was
in
the
the first one. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Oh, those are good.
The barn find cars are. That was like one of my favorite parts of it.
Those are so good.
Yeah.
That those are for people who may not know, there are hidden on the map random garages that you can find and unlock a car. Usually, at least in the later games, and I think it was this way in the first one, you would get a side quest, and again, like I mentioned, it's like an RPG about a rumor of a car, and which made it a lot of fun, right? Because you get a little hint of what it is, and then as you're driving around this area to find it in a usually like a disused garage or a cave or whatever, you kind of like play that little mental game with yourself, like, ooh, what iconic car that I know is it going to be?
Yeah, they did a really good job of teasing it for you. And then
Yeah,
also
like
like
some kind of like, arcane fact. So, this is the, one of the only cars ever produced for, consumer use with a magnesium steering wheel bearing, or like some weird, like, it's like some, and you're like, oh man, and you can probably figure it out if you spend the time, which I like games that reward things like that, where it's like, if you go and are interested on your own outside the game, you can figure this stuff out, and
Right.
that's fun.
Yeah, it's like a BMW M1 is a barn find. What
love
else
that
was
car.
there? I'm just looking here. Testarossa, like stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, stuff that you'd want to get. I think, to my mind, I would call this game. I would call this game's mechanics super memorable, and the plot sort of memorable. I mean, I had the basics of it right. I Does that count?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I said we'd get to it, when we got to it. But this is like my Goldilocks zone for games, where like there's a ton of cars, ton of different customizations, and they address the character, and you can choose names and nicknames and whatever else. And for me, that's just enough framework for me to hang that, as you called it, Andrew, the self insert on.
Mm-hmm.
And like
So
that's what I need, and that's why I didn't play the first one, but I have played all of the subsequent ones
I am just
to damn near completion.
yeah, I'm just addicted to that first one. It's like so pure. You got to try that sometime. So there are two simultaneous directions I want to go in here. The first one is going to leverage Nick's knowledge of the F1 series of games. And then the other one is Grid. So Tristan and I both know Grid really well. But Nick, I want to ask about the F1 series because they do have a story mode, but I
Yes.
don't know how involved it is.
It gets more and more involved as the games go on. I
Sure.
think my most recent was either 2018 or 2019, so I'm a couple years behind. Um, the most recent one, you can be a team owner, so you can bring a new team to the grid if you want to be like team manager. And the career mode actually starts you off in the lower series, so you're not just starting off as a rookie in F1. You're actually starting off in the F2 series
Mm-hmm.
and trying to kind of earn your stripes there, which is pretty cool. I think there's you the deal with a lot of those games is whether it be F1 or other motorsports games, there are ones who try really hard and come really close to a very, very good career mode. I'd say F1 is one of the best. Um, Even the new NASCAR games try pretty hard, and they
Right.
they, they do a pretty decent job at it. Um, I think as far as like the opportunity for a drive for like a racing career, I would say Project Cars 2 has been the closest.
Well, wait. Oh, let's pause for a second there. By best career mode, do you mean like most accurate to real life, most
Yes,
compelling
that, that's
story?
that's where I'm coming from. Like, how close is it to real life? So, like Formula One, the Formula One career mode is really good. It's really in depth. Um, it puts an emphasis on things like practice and gathering data for the team. They give you, you know, at least the most recent game I have, you know, it it's actually not in your best interest. Like most games, you can like skip practice, go right to qualifying or the race on those when you enter into those race weekends. Um, you actually prove your value to the team and earn respect from like different engineers, like the aerodynamics department or the power, uh, or the drivetrain, group or whatever by different tasks you complete during practice. So we need you to run 4 laps with an average at this, but using this much fuel, and you've got to like complete those tasks. And then that when you go into contract negotiations for your next season, that actually helps like boost your position within the team. Like, are you going to be paid more? Are you going to be the number one driver versus the number two driver? um, or is that going to give you credibility with other teams so you can move from like Williams or Haas up the ladder to maybe a Ferrari or a Mercedes one day. So um, the F1 game puts a lot of emphasis on that. What I don't like, I will just stick with F1 as the theme, and what I would like to see in all the racing games is something that they actually do, like if you do a career mode on a Madden or an NBA 2K, where it's like after each season, do free agents actually switch teams, or um, in the Madden games, like players retire, um, and that makes new opportunities. Like you don't see that in racing games. You could play 20 seasons of Formula One, and unless you move to a new team, like Mercedes will always be Hamilton and Bottas for 20 straight years. you know, like which that's the kind of stuff I would
It
like to see.
seems realistic.
Yeah, that's
A
the
little
kind
bit.
of stuff I would like to see. And you can also like you only sign 1-year deals, which a lot of people do that anyway, but like if you're really good, maybe a big team would want to lock you up for 4 or 5. Like that's the kind of stuff, just those other variables I would like to see injected into racing career modes.
Well, when so in the confines of all of this, is there an actual plot? Is there not even necessarily like voiceover or FMV or cutscenes or anything, but is there a actual storyline, or is it just the career mode sort of driving itself? Right, you complete the smaller objectives, lead you to the bigger ones. You as the self-insert character drive the you know
Yeah. So you can name your character, you can customize their helmet design, pick their nationality, all that stuff. Um, but the only real cutscenes are like post race. Like
hmm,
if you have a bad race, the guy will get out and kind of sulk away from the car. Obviously, if you're on the podium, there's a podium cutscene. Um, and then depending on the game, because they kind of took it away and brought it back, after some sessions, you'll actually have like media availability, and there'll be like a microphone in your face, and someone will be asking you questions, and it'll give you options on how you want to answer. So
that's
like
interesting.
I want to live stream Andrew doing that.
you can choose to be like
What, picking dialogue tree?
Yeah.
yeah, the dialogue tree. Yeah, so you can choose to be like a team player and give credit to the team and be like, well, or you can go the opposite and be like, well, you know, yeah, I finished third, but if the car would have been any good, I would have finished first, and like, make it about yourself. So you can kind of choose what you want your driver to be like. Are you going to be like a flashy dick, or are you just going to be kind of a more of a Bottas, quiet behind the scenes, do your job type of guy?
Picking different options, does it actually do anything?
So yeah, if you depending on how you answer, you'll either, like I said, you'll either boost your rapport with the different departments of the team. So if you say, the car, yeah, I had trouble overcoming the straight line speed. We were really slow on the straights. Well, then it might, your aerodynamic department might look at you in a lesser way.
Hmm.
So stuff like that. But there's no real like super in-depth story mode. There's just these little cutscenes between the sessions that you, like I said, most of them you just kind of watch and they repeat. So if you have a few bad races in a row, you know what's going to happen. And then, yeah, the only other way you can kind of manipulate it is through your interview answers on some of these games for Formula One,
Sure.
that is.
Sure.
But no overall like plot with like, you know, oh, this guy is gonna be your rival, and then but his wife takes a liking to you, and blah 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 blah. Gives you tips and tricks. There's none of that
That
kind of
would
stuff.
be something I want to see.
That would be great.
Wife takes a idea, and then she's the one driving the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise, surprise! It's
I will say
actually
this:
his child.
yeah. The NASCAR game that I have, I think it's Heat 4. You can have like rivals depending
Yeah.
on like if you race them aggressively or not run into them or whatever on track, and like it's all handled post race through social media. So like after the race, the first thing that pops up is your driver's Twitter feed
Accurate.
with drivers bitching at you or complimenting you, and then you can either choose to like compliment, thank, or insult. to,
Oh,
each
I
each
wonder if they stole that from Madden or the other way around, because they have the same thing in Madden, and it's completely ass.
Yeah. So that's how they try to do it. But again, there's no real like plot to any of them.
Huh.
And I don't really think a plot like that is needed in a racing, like a strictly racing game, like Formula One or NASCAR style game.
Well, why
I
not?
What value is it going to add? Like, what can you possibly add outside of the racing part of a racing game? Like actual racing game, not like a Forza Horizon or a Need for Speed. Like, what kind of value do you think that would add to a game?
Well, I mean, the question, it's the same answer to the question of why were Madden fans mewling for a franchise, or not a franchise mode, a career mode with a storyline for like 2 decades or something like that, right? There is an audience inside of these fandoms that wants more direct wish fulfillment, right? And one way to get that is to have a main character that you play who has a story, who has a something relatable about him. And of course, in
There's
the
an
case of
NBA game that did a really good job at that.
well, and it's in the NBA games too, but I mean, in the case of Madden, they've been an abject failure. They fucking suck. They've done such a bad job. But I mean, there's something to that, right? There is an element of, if you can tell a good story inside a brand or inside a sport that you already have an attachment to, there's no question there's value to that. It's just that whoever's writing at EA at the moment is a complete idiot.
It wasn't an EA NBA game, and it was from my prior system. It wasn't PS4. It was PS3. So I can't put my
Probably 2K.
and maybe it was
That's the other big one.
2K, and they had a really good story mode. I think 2K still does have it to an extent. Actually, I have 2K18 or 19. There's the one with Giannis on the cover, and
Yeah.
that one also has a story mode. Either as a player or a GM, you can actually run a team in a story mode.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, but they call you AI no matter what.
Right. 2K has that thing, and it's like,
which kind of bothers me. But
boy, I wish this would stop.
yeah,
Please.
I mean, I guess
stop.
I don't know. I guess I've never thought about it for a strictly motorsports game. I guess if maybe like a team managers type thing, almost like an NBA GM story mode would be kind of cool.
Mhm.
I would just like same thing as I would like to make it closer to like a Madden career mode where there's just the and you could go even deeper with that because like especially if you get into like sports car and open wheel stuff, a lot of that is you're required to have some sort of funding to get the seat. So like, hey man, you did this good. There's this company out there that wants to help you out. They can give you this much. They can get you 10 races in this series or a full season in this one, and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go, and then do, like I said, drivers retire or they switch teams, and that opens up, and just like how to have that written into the back end, so every time like a season resets, something new presents itself for the character.
Mhm.
um I think that would be really cool. I don't know about all the off track stuff. That's just me personally.
Sure. Sure. Well, I guess that's something to talk about, right? You mentioned off track stuff, and I think this is a perfect segue into what I believe, and Tristan, I think you agree with me, to be the best presentation of, strictly speaking, storyline in racing games, which is the Grid series, where there is a continuous plot line throughout the game. It's not super mainlined, like they don't ram it into your face. However, there's nothing about that storyline that exists outside the world of the track and the garage, right? There's no extraneous character building. There's no labored thing like in Need for Speed Underground where like, oh no, the mystery racer was your mom or whatever it was. There's none of that. You fire up the game, you pick your in Race Driver Grid, first one, you fire up the game, you pick your nickname, your, I guess, pit boss, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
introduces you
Crew
to the
chief.
world of the game. He says, see those black cars? Those bad, beat them. And then you do that. And,
Okay.
you know, as you win more races, you unlock different races, faster cars, blah, blah, blah. Your main goal is to always beat the bad team who drive the black cars, as they would. And that's kind of it, right? That I found that, as simple as it sounds, to be extremely satisfying.
Yeah, I think
I've never played Grid. You guys say great things about it, and I've never actually sat down with it. So I'm a little out of my depth on this one.
Right.
Something we'll need to remedy. I'm trying to see if I'm conflating the two. I'm trying to see.
So that was Race Driver Grid. The story I just described as Race Driver Grid, the first one.
Right. Yeah, and then they actually, like, that was in 2008.
Yep.
So because there was also like the entire second layer of that, which is what I really loved, where it was like, as you, like, basically you run your own race team and act as the primary driver, and you can choose
owner driver. That's rare these days.
Yeah, your team's name, your livery, and then the part that was cool for me was you got to choose your sponsors.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Did they have like different requirements, but will pay you different amounts of money for that? Yeah.
Yep. It's like, so if you pass 4 people this race, no matter where you finish, if you make 4 passes, here's your sponsorship money or whatever. And I think that was interesting because it was fun, Andrew, to compare what sponsors you had on your car to sponsors I had on my car, because then you could be like, oh, well, Andrew's all about, you know, this aspect of the race versus like, I really try to accomplish this, so that's where our sponsors are different. And that part I really did like, where you could choose. Yeah, you were the owner driver, and like you said, Nick, it's rare. It's rare in it's rare in real life, and it's rare in video games. But yeah, like, you get to like hire a co-driver. It's like, the better your co-driver is, like, the more money they take from each race. So you'll win more races, but then you might have less money to upgrade your cars or whatever else. And like that balance was pretty cool.
And also their finishing position, once you got a co-driver, would play into your sponsor requirements.
Right, because you ran two identical cars. So you could be like, okay, well, I've got a relatively reliable but not high flying co-driver. He's always going to finish 4th or 5th. We can rely on him, though, like racing a clean race. So avoid X dollars in collision damage is this sponsor's thing. Let's put that one on the car because we know the AI will almost always get that one, and then like finish 3rd or above. I am gonna want to race hard. We'll throw that one on the car because then I know I'll get that one, and like that kind of thing is kind of cool. It's the handling other drivers while still having to drive yourself. And I think the beauty of that game, Andrew, and you might disagree with me, is that it was exactly complicated enough. There was enough to do without it being like, okay, I've played the game for 3 hours, I've done 1 race and 2 hours and 45 minutes of off-track activity, and now I gotta go to bed. Like, it's there's a lot of fun off-track stuff to do, but it's like, okay, let me just tweak this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes between each race and move on. And I thought that was like the perfect balance.
I totally agree. And there was kind of a slight elevation of the formula, I thought, with Grid 2, which added just the tiniest bit of outside stuff, because grid 1, like we talked about, was very circular. There was a little bit of stuff that you could do managing a team, but it was limited enough, like Tristan said, to give you something to play around with, but not something to focus on. And essentially, it just got you back into racing. Now, in Grid 2, they put the whole thing on a framework of social media with a fake World Series racing thing. Like you had to create buzz essentially to move into different race series. That I thought was really interesting because it gave, basically, instead of winning money right from the races, you would win fans, and the fans were like the currency of the game, and your sponsors would give you more fans, which essentially would then help you unlock stuff. So there was a tiny bit of the outside world kind of creeping into like the storyline aspect of it. You had to impress, I'm on the Wikipedia page here, Patrick Callahan, apparently.
Sure.
Who is an investor to the WSR.
Patches on the hand. Got it.
Exactly. Whatever. That doesn't really matter. But I think this was a good balance of essentially between Grid 1 and Grid 2. We have two games that have created a world for your character to exist in, giving you the tiniest bit of leeway to customize that character so you care more, and then just kept everything related to racing. There's no there's no fat to the story. There's no bullshit. There's no lesson to be learned, right? There's no moral. It's just racing, and that's it. And I think, although I didn't expect to land here, I think that might actually be what I want in a racing game storyline. I don't know that I want it to teach me anything.
Okay.
No other thoughts on that.
I'm just
I think that doesn't, as much as I liked Grid, I think that's also, that parallels very closely why I loved the Horizon games voraciously, was because it gave you a goal, it gave you a framework, it gave you things to build on. You need money, you need points, kind of the experience point kind of thing, to move up into the next stage, open the next race center in the next area of the map or whatever. And like, it was all hung on this framework of the kind of aspirational racing car/racing festival, and it gave you something to kind of sit there and idly dream about in your head. Well, Grid was a little bit more explicit about it in every case, which I loved Grid because of that, but I think it's, for me, even a little bit looser in Horizon is the sweet spot for me. But it's for the same reasons that you like Grid, Andrew. I think it's the same flavor, just down the spectrum a little bit, to be
right
a little bit more free, and combine it with all the story elements you can get with open world versus choosing races from a menu. But still, they are cheek to cheek in their goal and design.
Right.
So
well, I mean,
I like both.
Essentially, the heart of the Horizon series is make this party better. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
exactly.
It's again, there's really nothing to be learned. There's no. It's not trying to.
No wheel of morality, turn and turn, tell us the lesson that we must learn.
Right, exactly. It's hey, this party's really great, but it would be better if you jumped a car off that waterfall.
Yep. if you could see how many speed cameras you can set off between here and the next race, that'd
Which
be great.
really is incredibly admirable as a video game plot.
Whole premise, perfect.
Yeah, I am a big fan of RPGs in general and story-based games that aren't stupid, which is a narrow category. So I guess in my head, I expected that if there were to be a racing game, whether it's, something in the professional realm like F1, Nick, or something like a Horizon or a Grid that had a story to tell about a character who maybe not did crime, which is essentially the Need for Speed model, but had a story to tell that I would prefer that. But I'm just trying to think, right? In the major theory of literary conflict, what is it going to be? Probably not man versus himself, which would be internal conflict. It's probably not man versus society, which is sort of bordering on the criminal thing.
I'll say what Need for Speed is kind of going for already.
Right. Man versus man, I guess, is essentially the plot of Horizon 1.
Man versus machine.
Well, yeah. I think that's more well, I guess technically Gran Turismo without a story could be man versus himself, but man versus machine would be I guess the overall theme of racing in general. But yeah, I don't know if I want the story about what's a cliched storyline? I don't know if I want the story about the down and out racer who has to come back because his kid has leukemia and win the big cup to win the $1 million prize or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a stretch for
with it. Like, what can that add
racing.
to a racing game? I mean, you could do the down and out thing. Maybe you're coming back from an injury. Like, you had experienced a big crash in your career, maybe you needed to take a couple years off to recover, and now you have to try to, kind of rebuild your career.
What would that add for you?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what kind of story we could throw into like a motorsport specific game that we could build around. That's why I was asking before, like, what could we do that would make it better than it is?
Right.
It comes down to the Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. They spent so long figuring out whether they could. They didn't stop to think about if they should. And I think that's what you're saying, Andrew, is that I don't think there's actually, I think anything you take the time to develop is not going to add as much as you think, if anything at all, and wouldn't be worth the development time. Now, on the flip side, something I was hoping for with actually a couple games that came out not that long ago, but didn't really play to that, didn't really turn into that, was a lot of times in RPG like games there are companions, either animals or people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would love non-sentient, I get it, but a car companion essentially for an RPG.
Oh, no.
Like where you choose what type of car, you choose the upgrades, that kind of thing. And I think there could be some value to adding. I think here's it's coming full circle, Andrew. I know you said, "Oh God," but I think there's value in adding cars to games with a story, but I don't know that there's value in adding story to games about cars.
To wait, so you would want like a kit character in a different genre of game, say an RPG?
The love bug?
No, like I said, I was going for non-sentient. Like it's not something that you talk to or whatever, but it is something that you carry with you throughout the game, and it starts as very stock, very normal, maybe even kind of beaten down. I got this for cheap from a junkyard, and you carry it through the whole game with you as it gets upgraded and repaired and stuff.
Like,
And
you don't
you
get to
know,
trade it in or sell it, like, it's your car for the entire game, like, once you
I
pick it.
I have told I'm so mad. I have told you to play Final Fantasy 15 30 times. That game has a fifth character, and it's the car.
well, maybe now I'll play it. I didn't know that.
Such a liar. All right.
I just don't listen to you, and you don't listen to me, so it's fine.
That's why this friendship works.
Yeah, it's actually why it works. It's not in spite of that; it's because of that.
But no, in all honesty, that is the one example of a game that I can think of that has a. It's essentially a road trip video game, right? You play as Noctis, the main character. You leave your protected hometown to go on your walkabout as you are prince about to be king, and the car breaks down in the beginning, like right away, and then you can upgrade it and customize it, and you spend the entire game road tripping it across this magical land, right? I mean, it does have elements of that, and of course it is a part of the plot, but it's not at all the main focus.
Right. And I think it could go even one step further than that. I know it's not the way they went with the previous game in this series, and I don't know that you want to actually pull in that kind of big name itself, but like, what more fertile ground for a thing like that other than like a Mad Max series game where like the cars have to find the people. Like that kind of thing where it's like your character is you and your car. Now the car is not sentient, but the choices you make about your car influence both how you play the game and how non-player characters interact with you, treat you, view you initially, that kind of thing. That's like one step further where it's not a player character, but it's a critical piece of story-driven equipment that you cannot unequip.
Sorry, I'm looking up the Mad Max video game it's coming up here from 2015.
Right, so not that long ago.
Did either of you play that?
I did not.
I did not.
It was very bad.
So good thing I didn't.
Yeah. Because that has elements of it, right? So essentially, in that game, you have your Mad Maxian car. You can customize it, drive it around, blah, blah, blah. There is a overworld where you travel between and across this wasteland in order to get to extremely linear beat 'em up levels, essentially, right? And get all sorts of collectibles and stuff like that. It didn't work for me primarily because I can't take this world seriously. Like
that's the problem too. I think people have decided you should, and I don't think that was ever the intention.
I would totally agree. The second main character in this game is named Chum Bucket.
Yes.
What are we doing?
And Toe Cutter in the actual movie, like,
right.
These are and then it just gets more and more ridiculous as you move on from the first Mad Max.
Right, and not that this is a Mad Max podcast, but Fury Road was too high quality, I think was the problem. It totally ruined the world building.
It was too good.
What do you think, Nick? What do you think about? I mean, you're primarily a sports game player, right? In terms of and racing, obviously. But would you?
I have a few story games. Like I'm a big fan of the Naughty Dog studio, so like Last of Us 2, Uncharted games, like those types I'll play. I just got the now we're getting into other genres, but I just picked up the Jedi Fallen Order. So I'm a fan of some story-based games, but by and large, I am doing like either sports games or driving simulators. That's how I spend my time on video games.
would you be interested in a? Because I mean, I think actually the couple of games you mentioned, the very small player group focused, extremely linear third person RPG could very much work for a game focused around a boy and his car, for lack of a better term. But I just have
I like
no
that
idea. I just have no idea what he would do.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, it just depends on like how fast you want the story to advance, right? Like is it start with like like your main character just getting his or her driver's license and it starts from like your first car and it's like a driving like what would I mean I'm just trying to figure out what the objective of the game then would be.
Right.
Like where does the story lead? I'd be interested in it. Like if you can make a um car culture based story game like that. Um I
Hmm.
just off the
We
top of
should
my head,
we
I
should
just have
we should
no idea
try to put
where the
something
story would
together for
go.
that.
Like
So what
I
was
don't
that,
know
Nick?
I just have no idea where the story would go from like how would you know you won? Like
Oh,
like how would you beat the game?
you know what this reminds me of? Totally out of left field. I don't even know if Tristan, I'm sure you've probably heard of this game. Nick, I don't know if you have. Did you ever hear the game My Summer Car?
No.
So that was this indie game that came out a couple of years ago. I mean, it's probably like 6 years at this point. It's a first person pseudo survival game. It's kind of weird. Like you
Okay.
have to sleep and you have to eat. However,
Okay.
what you do is build a car from the motor to the transmission to the clutch. You have to put the car together. And then once you put it together, you're able to drive it. And it was extremely popular for a very short amount of time because it was a really, a short game. Once you figured out how things fit together, you then assembled the car and you could drive around the town and do dumb shit in a game that essentially didn't have much effort put into the town because all the effort was put into building the car. And it was fun. I'm also thinking there's also another game. Hold on. I'll try to figure out a way to look that one up.
While you're looking that one up,
Yeah.
I myself was looking at what excuse me.
Hang in there.
Control your own bodily functions, but the whole point is to reassemble the car with parts either in your garage or purchased.
Right, that's the other thing. You had to drive the car to the shop to get stuff for the car build.
And one of the things you could do is make Finnish homebrew sugar wine and sell it to an alcoholic neighbor.
I didn't know that. Oh my god. Jesus. Tristan swallowed a bug or something.
All right, I'm back.
So that's one example. Another indie game actually that I played and just remembered, it reminded me, was a game called Jalopy, which is
the best word ever.
yeah, it's a good word. It's a game. Let me look it up here. The game follows a player character known as Splat and his uncle Lufti, two Germans of Turkish descent from Eastern Berlin who have decided to go on a road trip to Istanbul since the Iron Curtain fell. You have to like maintain the car, right? It's basically they have invented the car, but it's essentially a Trabant, and you have to keep it going with oil and tires, and along the way you will find discarded boxes, and you have to not keep any contraband in your car as you're crossing border checkpoints and stuff. It's interesting, but I just hated the car after like 2 hours and never played anymore. I was like, this is dumb and I hate it.
I've never heard of that one either.
Yeah. More indie games.
Sorry, as we're talking about cars and motorsports, whenever you say indie, I'm thinking like indie car. So whenever you say it's an indie game, I'm like, oh, is it? Nope. Wait, never mind. Not independent.
Right.
Indie someone.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry, I was just reading. Because I never finished the game because I thought it was annoying. I'm reading the ending here. So, so the uncle wanted to go to Istanbul, like I said. After Splat, the main character, drops his uncle off in Istanbul, the uncle is never seen again, with him simply leaving a note telling his nephew that he has to go do something alone to look after himself and live his life fully. After that, sounds so dark. After that, the game never ends. The player can reset from the beginning and do it all over again as many times as you want. However, the only difference is that the uncle will be absent for the entirety of the game. Sad.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Bummer, man. Bummer.
Yeah, that sucks.
You know, the more I think about this, how could you attach a story to a car video game that isn't essentially just very sad?
You could go heroic.
Example?
Not off the top of my head.
Good talk.
It doesn't have to be sad.
Oh, then tell me how.
Any way that's not. There are so many ways.
And name one. Name just one.
He just did.
What, just a different way?
In the end of the game, you are victorious. You have all of your family members, and things.
Maybe you're reunited with one.
Yeah. No,
you're reunited with somebody.
You keep them the whole time. Because if you're reunited, that would be a sad storyline, and Andrew would not want it. You leave home. You wave goodbye to your lovely family. You and your car go road tripping across the plains of video game land, and then you slay the big monster guy, and you come home.
So the car helps you defeat a monster because there are cars and monsters.
Hey, you just told me about a game with cars and magic. All right, so I don't want to hear it.
I have told you about that game like 30 times. That makes 32 now. Are you
but
happy?
you just told me about it. So now I actually remember.
Okay, all right. So you think it's possible. I almost don't think it is. And it's not, I'm not just saying that because in order to have a plot, to have conflict in a plot, essentially there has to be something sad that happens. There has to be a impetus for action.
Yes.
But I feel like there's something about cars almost innately, because they represent essentially possibility and achievement and status. There has to be a moment where at the very least the car in any plot line must get taken away, which would be inherently sad, but I'm also not against it in terms of a different kind of game that's not racing focused.
Yeah, because when it's racing focused, it's kind of just a trope more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So let's sum up with a brief one each description of what the game you want looks like.
Okay. Do you want to lead us off or?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, and I've talked about this in the podcast before, I have done some learning in this episode, so I can definitely refine my original point. But I think for me, I want a very focused, racing focused game that has a story more than it has a plot. I would like the character to be customizable. You know, I want there to be other characters in the game. It can be a pit crew, it can be a pit boss, or another, other racers, other possible teammates, a bad racing team, or even a bad racing man that you have to outrace.
Bad racing man.
Well, that's Horizon 1. I don't need more than that. I don't need a outside world, right? By that I mean I don't need the characters to have external motivations. I don't need to know that Bad Racing Man did this because his father died at the Horizon Festival 20 years ago, and this is like the anniversary or some shit like
And
that.
now
You know what
he's
I
here
mean?
to take it all down.
Right. Like I don't need that. Keep it keep it tight. Don't add that shit. Don't give me fat to try and teach me a lesson, because A, I'm not going to learn it because I'm not listening, and B, I'm here to drive cars. I'm here to look at things that look pretty, including the cars and the scenery. And I want to be compelled to move forward, so I don't just sputter and die after hour 7 when I'm racing Suzuka for the 19th time. Which I'm happy to do. I'm happy to race Suzuka 20 times, but there has to be a damn good reason why I'm doing it, or at least a somewhat good reason.
You hear that, Gran Turismo? More
And
tracks.
character evolution, right? That's the next thing. Like you mentioned, Nick, there has to be a way for the character, whether it's in the Horizon sense where you are expanding your own world, or whether it's in almost the Grid sense where you progress from a nobody, a street racer, to a racer on a team, and then the head of a team. I need that too. I need there to be movement. And ideally, you would kind of race yourself into a position where you are the team owner, which we didn't talk about it in this episode, but is essentially the plot of Grid 3, or Grid Autosport, it was called. Except the problem is you couldn't actually own the team fully. Like you couldn't hire both drivers or take over against the bad team, right? They were always there and they were always on top. So there has to be a way to defeat the quote unquote bad guy and they maintain a nice sense of progression along the way to keep driving me forward.
Yeah, I think mine is going to be kind of similar to that, and something that I don't like a lot in the current generation of video games is the constant, not even microtransactions, because those played well can make things work. Mm-hmm. I think a very good example of that is the spectrum of people, and Andrew, I talked to you about this, that actually play Fortnite. Like it goes from kids with their parents' credit card that are basically paying for me to have Epic develop a very few pieces of content that I want to purchase. And then all the way down at the far end of the spectrum is people who never buy anything that's not given to them. They're just there for the gameplay. Leave me alone. And I think that would be something that I would be interested to see from a Forza Horizon. You could call it like Horizon Online or whatever, where it's a open world, constantly being updated and changed, not necessarily with PvP, like you could do a PvP option, but like as other players do things, you would see that change your world. And you could do things to earn it back from them. There would be developing content, so like the game would release with 50 cars, and every quote unquote season they would release map tweaks and new cars that are in the base game. And if you want to keep any, like you get a certain amount from the last season that you can keep for free. Any more than that, you have to buy them with real world currency to keep them. Like just like keep content, like keep content. Well, not necessarily. Like it's if you care enough to do it, to like buy stuff every season, which are usually in these games like 2 or 3 months. Like if you're just in it for the driving, and you get a certain amount every time that you can just keep them. But if it's like you get to keep 2 cars a season for free, and you've got your baby that you've worked on, it's super cool. You can kind of franchise tag that car. But if you're someone who wants to be in that game, to customize cars, to put a bunch of logos and visuals on them and do liveries and stuff, and those you don't want to just make those liveries and apply them to new cars. You're attached to how they are on a certain car. You can keep that car. But if you're in it for like, let me just drive whatever's next, you don't have to pay. You can just roll right into the next season for free. And you get a bunch of new content. So that way, people who want to have a 300 car garage with all these things that they've customized and they've paid a bunch of money for to keep, that'll keep the game going. And then you and I, Andrew, we can keep our 1 or 2 cars a season. And last season was the season of Audi. They released 4 or 5 cars that I like. I paid $2 or $3 each to keep them into the next season, but it's optional to keep paying. I think that's the big thing. A lot of times people don't like pay to win microtransactions, and B, really you just have to rebuy the whole game every 2 seasons, every 4 to 6 months. You end up paying $30 or $40 just to like keep going in the game. And I think that would be an interesting way to like add story. Like, hey, a major landmark in the Forza Horizon world got changed because of some event. Like, hey, there was all this racing going on in the desert, and it rerouted a river, or caused
really cool.
and they can base it on like what people are doing. So it's like, oh, a lot of people are racing over on this desert track, that caused a dust storm. It wiped out the event center over here, so we had to move and put a new one over in this part of the map that didn't have one before. And like, you could aggregate as the season is going, like where people are racing and what kind of vehicles they're racing, and like make changes based on that. And that's the kind of story that I would like to see hung on a Forza Horizon frame, where like you get some you get some basic character customization. You get to choose your name, your nickname today with real world speech software. I don't know why my iPhone can say my name, but I can't type letters into a video game and have it say it. So like I said, I'd be stuck with a nickname. But I think that plays to people who want to spend a lot of money on games, and like every year will pay $90 for the super limited edition version of Forza Horizon with all the special cars and everything else, or someone who just wants a playground to go and drive in and a place to build their story for any amount of money in between. And that can live out, you can either live your life like you would in real life and spend money or not, or you can, for not very much more, you can be like, oh yeah, this season I kept 4 Ferraris and this is my Lamborghini that I kept. And like in real world currency, it costs you $20, like, and it's
sure.
it's a place to build your story. And that's what I want, is a way to build your own story within the frame that's given to you and with other people. I've always been a co-op person, Andrew. Like, that's, that, like, a game comes out and I'm like, can I do co-op in this? And I think co-op on a grand scale where all of you are shaping the story, that would be very interesting to me. That's my pie in the sky. Very specifically for like, this is my dream game. But if we were looking at kind of the templates that we looked at today, I would say a Forza Horizon with a little bit more character customization would be spot on for what I would enjoy.
What, dance poses wasn't enough for you? People are never satisfied.
That's pretty deep. Yeah, mine is not that in depth. I think it kind of, it just goes back to what I said a little bit ago on this episode here. Is I would like to see a racing game with a more expansive and realistic career mode similar to what you see on a Madden or an NBA game with, I want to see a world where maybe after 4 years Lewis Hamilton retires or he switches from Mercedes to Red Bull or
Ugh.
something like that, or in an like maybe an IndyCar or sports car game where you're coming up through the ranks and you're not necessarily well known or accomplished enough to be like a full paid factory driver. Um, and you have to kind of scrounge for different sponsorships and see what kind of packages you could put together for partial seasons or endurance races only or full schedules. Um, and just make it more akin to what a race driver actually experiences. And I would say I would add this, like I probably wouldn't like how am I going to phrase this? Okay, so if I were to present this 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would say this is just for me. I would be the only one who buys this game and the only one who plays this game, and I don't care. I think with the expanded popularity of the R factors and the iRacings and the Assetto Corsa Competiziones and the actual legit simulators and the people out there who are trying to get that realistic driving experience, this would have some play. It wouldn't be as popular as the Halo games were back in the day. It'd still be a niche thing, but it's worth the investment for some developer to do.
So when you're talking about this essentially storyline or goals, would it be I'm just at this picture of Nick playing this game in his racing seat with the steering wheel, and on the screen there's like famous racer Y Dale Earnhardt Jr. like, hey man, this is my team, welcome. And it's just like, because that's what they do in those Madden 2K storylines. They bring in athletes who then do a horrible job at voice acting, and it completely shatters any suspension of disbelief that you might have had that you are this 6'8" guard with a perfect three. It just completely shatters it because you have LeBron James quarter-assed reading lines written by some guy who didn't know what the heck he was doing.
Right. Yeah. I don't even think there would need to, for me personally, I don't even think there need to be like those type of cutscenes and dialogue. Maybe like, a lot of these racing games, they'll try to give you an agent, quote unquote, but they
Oh,
really
sure.
don't do anything. It's just like, hey, good job. Someone else is taking notice. And like, that's it.
Or
Like
there'll be
maybe,
like a comic relief, perish the thought. They do that in all of the sports games. Huh,
oh, yeah.
this agent's whoa, wacky. Whoa.
Yeah. Um, Maybe the interaction with your agent, you know, maybe those can be the cutaways. Like all of a sudden you get a phone call, you'll go to a race weekend, you complete your practice, you complete your qualifying, and you go to click race, and all of a sudden it's like a cutscene where like you get a phone call from your agent, like, hey man, your sponsor's check didn't clear. You can't
Ooh.
you can't drive. We've got to go to work and try to find some new sponsors or something like that. And you're forced to sit out a weekend or two while you scrounge up new deals. Yeah, I could see that, but yeah, I don't really. It's tough to really put like that off track story mode into what I'm picturing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be there. Like I said, I discovered myself. I actually find that more annoying than anything else.
Yeah. So, but that would be mine. Is just give me a real. And there's games that have come close. Like I said, Project Cars 2 came close, but they went into so many different series. Like you can start in a go-kart and you can go to rally, you can go to off-road, you can go to IndyCar, you can do like, and they put so much in there that they didn't spend enough time making each one realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just spread too thin, and none of the teams were real. Like they're all fake teams, which for me, I don't like that. That's just me. Um, so let's focus on a series or at least a discipline of motorsports, and then incorporate the real teams and the real drivers, but make more variables throughout the career mode. That's what I want.
All right, I'm into that.
So that would be my perfect driving game.
Is Project Cars 2 worth playing overall? No. Okay.
I would probably say if
You
you're
have to
really
sigh.
if you're really into Sims, like realistic Sims, I would give it a shot. But if you're not that into them, you could probably avoid it.
So that's something I've always thought. I played the first Project Cars, and that was a game that I thought was really weird because unlike other racing games, it gave you the option to drive front wheel cars right off the bat, which I appreciate because I prefer to drive those cars in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they were the least realistic front wheel drive cars I've ever driven. They felt horrible. They did not feel like a front wheel drive car to me. And maybe I
Yeah.
just don't know how a car drives, but
No, I think what my issue with as far as the mechanics on Project Cars 2 is, and it's probably my fault because I just haven't stepped up and got a wheel for the PlayStation. Like I'm playing my driving games on the console with my actual controller, like the joystick,
right.
and the game just wasn't designed for that. Like it just doesn't translate in your steering. So,
Sure.
um that's trouble on that game for sure.
And I guess I get that, but also that's super annoying, right? You have to understand if you're making a game for consoles, 99.99979% of the people who play the game are going to play it with a controller. It's just the wheels. Yeah, that's the other thing. A totally unrelated complaint, but racing wheels don't simulate steering wheels accurately. They're just like a quarter more accurate than a controller. Like that's something that bothers me immensely.
Yeah, on the online sims with force feedback and stuff, it's a little bit better, but like I don't see much of a I don't see why you would take a steering wheel and plug it into your PS4. Like I would much rather save it for the iRacing sim or something like that on an actual like rig, I guess you could say.
Yeah. All right.
Did you get everything out of this that you wanted to, Andrew?
Me, I did. My real desire is to be able to have enough experience with racing games to be able to talk more in depth about the essentially the merits of the plot, right? But it's just not realistic because for a lot of these games, I mean, you have to spend, they say you never played Underground, right? So that's what, 10 hours. Underground 2 is another 10. It's just, a lot of time sunk into playing racing games for the plot, which I think, as we discovered, there's really not a lot to it. In my case, I'm either going to like it or not remember it.
Yeah, exactly. And really, not to open up another huge discussion. I don't know if this is going to do that this late in the game, but like I feel like the plots in racing games, like they may not be the most in depth or something that we really like, but I feel like it's just there to kind of keep everything move. That's not the focus. The games themselves are still at this point about the cars and the driving, and it's not really about the story in the background. So I don't know if I'm really that pissed off that the plot is kind of hokey.
Mm-hmm.
Because the driving experience, hopefully, on these games is still going to be good. Like I still love the Need for
Yeah,
Speed
and
Underground 2 games,
I
and it
think
wasn't really because of
that's
the
the point.
plot; it was because of the cars, and it was because of the driving experience.
I think that's the point that Andrew and I are making is like there needs to be enough plot to get you to keep advancing through the game, but any more effort than that
Doesn't need to win an Oscar,
right? Is
No
wasted for the most part.
Yeah.
And for God's sake, no goddamn moralizing. That's such a plague in video games. Like that's some you'll find it in you said you just got Fallen Order, Nick. Buckle up.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Sounds good. Looking forward to
They're gonna let you know who the bad guy is. I'll tell you that.
it. Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
So cool. We seem to have gotten what we wanted to out of this. Hopefully, listeners, you did too. So let us know. Um, find us on social. We haven't told you how to do that yet. Facebook, Insta, Twitter. Reach out to us on there. You can let us know what would make your perfect driving or racing video game. So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. We appreciate you listening. Like I said, we want to interact with you. We don't want you just to listen. So you can find us on the socials. We can also, through whatever streaming platform you listen to us through, leave us a review, preferably a good one, and or hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you'll get notified of any new content that we put out, so there's no harm in that. If you're really into what we're doing and would like to support us monetarily, you have two options for that. We have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/checkenginepodcast, or on our homepage, anchor.fm/checkenginepodcast, there is a support button that you can click to get started. Every cent pledged is put towards making this podcast a better experience for you, the listener, and none of it goes back to us. So again, thank you in advance. Gentlemen, who or what are we thanking before we sign off this evening?
I would bet that Tristan might jump in on this one, but for this week, I'm going to thank the band formerly known as Daft Punk, who broke up yesterday, right? It was yesterday?
Yes, it was.
Which is sad because I like that band and they've been together as a band for a long time, 20 plus years.
It's like 23 years or something like that.
And they were the first band that I was ever informed enough about for long enough to be a genuine hipster about it. And that was a really nice moment. So I mean, who knows? When you start to deal with bands that originally became big in some way because of the early internet, it becomes hard to remember exactly when you first heard them, right? So I don't remember the first time I ever heard Daft Punk, but I do remember it was around the time would have been Discovery or Homework, Tristan, with Rollin' and Scratchin', Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I think that's Discovery.
Yes.
So that would have been. I mean, those songs got some radio play, but I remember I remember hearing Rollin' Scratchin' at a buddy's house, and he had just built a custom visualizer out of LEDs and a little breadboard, and he had downloaded a plugin for Winamp that made USB visualizers work, right? So it was just a couple rows of LEDs, red at the bottom, yellow in the middle, and blue at the top, and it would go up and down, in accordance to the music. And it was just like the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. And then, the music was like, all right, I could get into this. And so I just kind of became a fan of the band, not necessarily because of their like harder club stuff, but because of their melodic stuff.
Mm-hmm. And, that's why the second album, I think, resonated with you and me. Is their first album was really just kind of raw electronic music. Mm-hmm. Like they started dealing with like actual music themes by the second album, and
which was a soundtrack actually. The second album was the full soundtrack of a anime called Interstellar.
Yep.
Four fives? I don't know. I think it's 4 or 5s. I think it's 5. Which I've never seen, but it's a great album. And from then I listened to Daft Punk, and they've been a staple of all of my playlists since then. But
including ones on this podcast.
Well, yeah, of course. And then when Random Access Memories came out, and it was just this gigantic smash, I was offended. I was completely offended to hear Get Lucky every 30 seconds everywhere in the whole entire world. And I didn't listen to the album for probably 3 months after it came out. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I knew about Daft Punk. This is the first Daft Punk album you've ever heard. Like the classic hipster reaction. But I love that. I love Random Access Memories because it's not what the rest of their albums are. I think were they to come out today, you would consider the Daft Punk early albums to be in or adjacent to lo-fi, right? But they weren't lo-fi. That's just the way shit sounded back then. It was very compressed, and they used a lot of studio effects, which further compress stuff. And the thing about Random Access Memories, it's mixed to absolute perfection. If you can listen to that album at the highest quality possible through like a DAC or something, it's just absolutely perfect. There's even on Get Lucky, there's like the guitar part, right? You can hear the pick hitting the strings. You can hear the notes that don't fully ring. You can hear the multi-tracking of Pharrell's vocals, like him not being on perfect pitch and everything like that. It's just so perfect in terms of the actual sound of the album. And I'm glad I got to hear that.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'd like to thank them too, is that like I don't even know if like my family would know about the level to which I appreciate Daft Punk, but it's I'd like to thank them because it's literally just two guys doing what they love and getting progressively better at it and getting more opportunities, and it's, to me, it's very, very inspirational, as well as just damn good to listen to.
Yeah, that was the thing about them, sort of previous to Random Access Memories, and even now after. They're the rare popular band, especially if you spend your time on the internet, where there's no prerequisite to enjoying their music. You can put it on and then you can turn it off, and that is the end of it. There's no fan club to buy into. There's no anything. You just play it and then you stop playing it and then you play it again later.
I had actually not heard this news, so this is a surprise to me that they're breaking up. But yeah, that sucks. I'm not even a big fan. I'm not a fan really at all of that kind of music, but I mean, you can't deny how influential that duo was. So, that sucks. That really sucks. That wasn't going to be my thank you though.
Well, I thought Tristan would probably join me on that, but
I think Tristan jumped in. Yeah. My thank you actually is I would like to thank Gabriel's Taco Truck in downtown Oconomowoc, near where I live. Claire and I were in a pinch and needed so we needed some good tasty food after taking care of my parents' driveway and sidewalk after all the snow we just got. And we had never tried it before, and we stopped in and grabbed some Mexican food from this little taco truck that is in a random parking lot downtown, and it was incredible.
Nice.
Some of the, like, I've never had a bad experience with a food truck, to be honest. Like, everyone I've tried has been really good. These guys are incredible. So if you're ever in Oconomowoc, Gabrielle's Taco Truck, right on Wisconsin Avenue downtown. Go check them out. Great food.
Put that on my list.
Yeah. So thanks to Gabrielle's, and also thank you to our listeners for your continued support. We love hearing from you. We love recording this for you, and we cannot wait to speak to you again. Until then, take care.